This is the Serial at Midnight podcast. Hello and welcome to the Serial at Midnight podcast. My name is Heath Holland, and this week we're talking to Jimmy Hunt, former child actor Jimmy Hunt. You know him as the star of Invaders from Mars, the original 1953 sci-fi classic that scared the pants off an entire generation. It's a nightmare of a movie. It's been recently restored, and there's a new Blu-ray, there's a new 4K out, and that is what opened the door for this conversation. But I wanted to talk to Mr. Hunt about his many early Hollywood experiences. This is a direct connection with someone from the golden age of Hollywood. He has firsthand accounts of so many different experiences. I start this interview by reading off a list of some of the people that he worked with in his very short... Guys, we're talking about a short career. He retired at 14 from acting to go live a normal life. So from the late 40s into the early 50s, he worked with a variety, like dozens, you guys, dozens of stars. Robert Mitchum, Ronald Reagan, future president of the United States. It's all in the interview. First-hand accounts of what it was like to work with these people. And you know what else comes through in this interview is that Jimmy Hunt saw a UFO. I couldn't believe it. The story is in this interview. It's towards the end, so that's an excuse to not bail early. I could not. I asked the question. I was not expecting the answer that I got. Jimmy Hunt saw a UFO, and he remembers it very, very clearly. What a privilege! What a treat to be able to interview an actor, a performer from the golden age of Hollywood. Invaders from Mars is now on Blu-ray and 4K. I'm going to put a link in the description of this episode so you can find that. I want to thank the people behind the Invaders from Mars restoration and this release, Ignite Films, and the team there that facilitated things to make this interview happen. This is not just about Invaders from Mars, though that is, of course, talked about. This is about Hollywood. This is about really paying respect to somebody who has seen and done an awful lot and has great memories. So without further ado, Mr. Jimmy Hunt. You stayed in Southern California after you left the biz?
Oh, yeah. Right. Stayed right in the Bay Area, South Bay Area, Santa Monica, Culver City, that area. And then we moved, eventually we moved out to Simi Valley, which is about 40 miles northwest of Los Angeles. And it's where the Reagan Library is. So I'm about 20 minutes from the Reagan Library.
Wow.
And it's kind of cool because I made a movie with him. He was my dad.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, see, that's one of the things that I wanted to ask you about. I've actually got a list here and so you were born in 1939 and we're going to say you retired from movies in 1954, right? Right. I think So, in that span, from 47 to 54, you appeared in movies that also starred Barbara Stanwyck, Robert Mitchum, Dick Powell, Elizabeth Scott, Jane Wyatt, Claudette Colbert, Fred MacMurray, Bing Crosby, Ronald Reagan, Piper Laurie, Joel McCrea, Tony Curtis, Mamie Van Doren. I mean, this is like a walking. There's so many A-list stars there, right? And you wouldn't have. I don't know that as a kid actor, as a child actor, you would have known. Or did you? Were you like, holy cow, this is Joel McCrea? Or did you see the greatness of those actors at the time?
No, my parents had to explain who they were to me. It's like, Bing Crosby. Everybody knows Bing Crosby because of White Christmas and those kind of things. But no, some of them I didn't know who they were, and I didn't. And later on in life, as I learned more about them, it was kind of exciting because I thought, gee, I didn't know that, that Dick Powell could sing and dance and do those kind of things. And some of those people most of those people were really talented.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, in those days, that's when the studios actually created a star. I mean, if you were one of the big guys, I mean, they made sure that you stayed on the straight and narrow and everything went right. And they didn't want to tarnish their image either. So
I just have to imagine it's surreal to be, maybe you're flipping through the channels and you're like, oh, I was in a movie with that guy, or the president, right? Like Ronald Reagan becomes president. You're like, I worked with him.
It is, I mean, every once in a while I'll do that. I'll be going along, I go, I worked with him and I worked with him, and then you go on another movie and you go, hey, and I worked with him, and or her and her, so.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's, at the time, you don't realize it. You
Right.
just go and do your thing and what they tell you to do. That was what, as a child actor, I mean, I had no training. I just was, at the right place at the right time, so to speak. I had freckles, curly hair, looked like Van Johnson as a young boy, and that's how I got the part.
Did you want to be an actor, or was it something, we hear a lot of stories now about how parents push their kids to the forefront, right? Is this something you wanted?
No, I didn't want it, and my parents didn't want it. It was just something that happened. I
Wow.
mean, I made that movie, High Barbary, which is with the story, of my playing the part of Van Johnson as a little boy.
Mm-hmm.
Made that, and then next thing I know, I was there at MGM. They said, well, we have another movie here we'd like to have you be in. And that was Song of Love with Katharine Hepburn. And so I played in that one. And then they had another one. And it just started to go from there. And so, no, we didn't have any inkling or any idea or even a thought of me being in movies.
So as this is happening, though, as one project leads to another, which leads to another, are you enjoying the process? Or are you just kind of like, well, I'll do this next one and then I'll get out? Or how do you feel about it at the
And
time?
I don't think I even thought about it at that point.
Yeah.
It's just, it happened. And the nice thing about it was the fact that I got to go back to school after the movie was done.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't interrupt my real life, so to speak. And in my real life, we were just kids. I lived not about 6 blocks from MGM, and in a middle class home. Had great parents. My mom and dad were the best, and my dad was by far the best dad that ever lived. So it was just good. I mean, good. And I played with all my friends, and during the summertime, I wasn't making a movie, I'd wake up in the morning and grab a bite to eat quick and out the door, and I didn't come back until the light went on at about 6 o'clock. So
Mm-hmm.
we just played. That's what we did. We just had fun.
It sounds like your professional career, it sounds like acting or appearing in movies did not necessarily affect your friendships and your relationships with your peers. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, no, I still had good buddies, and even all the way through until when I retired. I mean, at 14, I mean, that was one of the reasons I retired, was the fact that I was into sports, wanted to play football and baseball in high school, and I couldn't do that and do acting. And
Mhm.
so, hey, I gave up acting.
How did it go? How did the athletics go?
Hey, I was okay. I mean, I was all right. I mean, I played and got to be on the field, and I was okay. I can't say that my two sons are much better athletes than I am, but and then my grandson is even better than they are. So
Wow.
he's up at Berkeley on a track scholarship.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So anyway, no, it was I love sports at the
Mhm.
time. I mean, I was, as a kid, I can remember, laying in bed late at night. It was my little radio turned down as much as I could so nobody could hear it, and listening to and I didn't realize it at the time, but it was a replay of the Brooklyn Dodger baseball games, with Jackie Robinson and all those guys.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, no, I like I said, sports was a big thing in my life, and they still are. And giving that up, or giving my movie career up to be in sports, was the right thing to do. I mean, it all worked out perfect for me.
Mhm.
Yeah, there were times when you look and I can remember as 18-year-old, 17-year-old, and hoping that my parents for Christmas was they were going to make my wish come true. And I ran out to the garage and looked, and my old hot rod was still sitting there, and it wasn't the '57 Corvette that I thought might be there.
Yeah.
So that was my dream thing, is to have a '57 Corvette. So
Did you ever get one?
no, never got one.
You never got one? Oh,
You know, and it's true. And I look back now and I think, oh gosh, you know, it kind of changed from '57 Corvette and back to like a 1962, 63 Porsche Carrera.
mm,
But in those days, I mean, I could have gotten those for so cheap,
mhm.
and now you have to pay like $100,000 for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was different back then. You could have these. I mean, it's not that they weren't cheap, but they weren't what the cost of those at the time doesn't translate to what it is now. You
Oh.
could make it happen if you wanted to.
Oh, yeah, no, I could have happened. Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But no, so you know, that's how it went. It just went. And my movie career, like I said, in between being just a regular kid, I made movies.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as I look back now, you know, we did an okay job of you know, they were okay. They weren't bad. You know, I look and sometimes I criticize myself when I watch the movies, you know, at home, and I go, oh man, I could have done better than that, or was that very good? And I, you know, it worked out good.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you weren't necessarily, I mean, you never had career aspirations for it. You were kind of just enjoying it as it came. So
Yeah, and that's exactly how it went. Yeah, I mean, exactly. And I look back now, and I was pretty busy. I mean, I look back and I made 42 movies.
mhm.
So in that shorter period, you know, I was moving right along. I mean, yeah, some of the parts weren't huge, but some of them were, you know, some were pretty good.
I mean, you were in more movies in that short span than some people have spent their whole lifetime pursuing, you know. I mean, you have a nice resume and it was just a short period of time too.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. How do you feel now? So the thing that's opened the door for our conversation is the restoration and the release of the original Invaders from Mars, which it's gorgeous. I know you got to see it and present it on like a big screen showing. It's wonderful. How does it feel after all these years to be talking about this movie again, to be doing publicity like we're doing right now, like doing interviews? Is it surreal? What's the experience like?
It's fun.
That's great.
It's fun. Because, you know, my livelihood doesn't depend on it.
Mhm.
It's just a fun thing to do. My granddaughter Haley is kind of I call her my manager, you know, and she does a fantastic job. I mean, she's going to have a career in the movie entertainment business, and like I said, and she's doing good. I mean, she really is. She just does a great job. But yeah, it's a fun thing to do, and we're enjoying it while we can. I mean, I didn't think that I'd ever be talking about Invaders from Mars 70 years after it came to this big screen. I mean, it's been 70 years now, you know, and so you know, everybody but myself and Janine Perot, I guess, that's not her last name now, but
Right.
we're the only two that are still left.
Mm-hmm. Well, you worked with Janine. You also worked with her sister Gigi
Gigi,
a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
She stayed in it.
Movies with her.
How many?
6.
6. I know she stayed in it. She stayed in, you know, she wasn't she the drama teacher for Meghan Markle?
Oh, I don't know.
That's what I heard. Yeah.
Could be, you know, and I guess she just moved to Atlanta. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Did you guys keep in touch? Did you keep in touch with the Perot sisters over the years?
Oh, not really. I mean, you know, it was a kind of a fun thing, back in 2012, I think. I'm trying to think of which award that they gave to me. It was one of those career achievement award things that I got from I think Southern California Movie Council or something like that. And
Okay.
it was a really nice award, and the people were super great there. But Margaret O'Brien was going to be the person that was going to present it to me. And she had to go somewhere, so they got Gigi to come and do that for her. And that was kind of fun because Gigi was, of course, the first person I worked with in movies on, I Barbary.
Mm-hmm.
And so there we were, got to see her after all those years. And it was kind of fun to just reminisce. And there she was with her children, and I was there with mine, and it was fun. So yeah, so then after that, we kind of every once in a while we'd email each other or text and do a couple things. But I kind of there was two lives. There was the one that was the Jimmy Hunt deal, and then there was the other life that was the Jim Hunt life, that was the real life.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of how it went. And my friends that I had on either side accepted me. I mean, if it was Jimmy Hunt, that was okay. And I made some good friends there. I mean, one of the one person I did keep in contact a little bit with was Joel McCrea. And because he had a ranch right out here, out of Simi Valley here in Thousand Oaks, and so I went up there. When I was a kid, I went up there and met his family and spent the day with them, and then also just recently we did a thing for a tribute to Joel McCrea. And so I was there with his grandson, Wyatt McCrea.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to do another thing here, I think in June or July or something. Another deal up there at the ranch.
Wonderful.
But yeah, and that was and Joel McCrea by far was my favorite person that I played movies in.
Do you have stories about, any behind the scenes stories that you might remember that stand out for you? About him or see, the thing is about Joe, or anybody else that you worked with. The thing is, these people are gone now, and all we have are the stories. And you having worked with, I know you were more interested in the behind the scenes people. I mean, I know that, but it's an opportunity, right? To talk about, I mean, Joel McCrea, Fred McMurray, he seemed, the thing that impresses me about Fred McMurray is he could be tough, right? I mean, he's got the noir films, but he was also, I mean, he was also he seemed so nice.
And he was nice. He was one of I have favorites. And it's, of course, the number one is Joel McCrea.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have Fred McMurray, you have Glenn Ford, yeah. And then, others down the road, but those were sort of my favorites. And, Ronald Reagan was good to me. I have no, Heath, I have no stories that I can tell where anybody abused me, anybody gave me a hard time, some of these young kids, and they like, I guess it was a Paul Peterson, I guess, or someone, but some of these guys have got some real horror stories, and
mm-hmm.
I had nothing but good stories.
That's great, though.
That's a blessing. The one thing I remember, made a movie called Weekend with Father with Van Heflin and Patricia Neal and Gigi Perreault and Janine. And in a scene that we made, it was a sack race where I was going to be along in the SAC with Van Heflin, and we were hopping along, and they said, "No, not stop. We're going to take this over again." And so instead of getting out of the bag and walking back to the starting line, we hopped backwards. And as we were hopping, of course, Van Heflin's a pretty big, good sized guy. And I'm in the back and we're bouncing, and all of a sudden we start to go down. And so what happens, of course, actually, I put my arm out to break the fall. Well, it broke my arm. So there, yeah. So anyway, they had to, they rigged up a special sling that kept my arm kind of against my side. And I was out for probably maybe a week or two, because the studio really made sure that everything was right, because they didn't want any lawsuits or anything like that. So yeah, I had my own special nurse and a masseuse that came in, and so at like 12 years old, your life wasn't too bad. Anyway, so, and then what happened was he felt so bad, Van Heflin felt so bad that they had fallen on me and broke my arm. So he had them, he bought this model airplane and took it to the studio there and had the guys assemble it and everything. And they painted it a special painting, paint with flames on it, and I mean, it was gorgeous. And so I took it, and of course, it was great. We'd get out there, and my dad and I would play with the engine and get it going. And then I took the plane up to Colorado when I was on location for Lone Hand. And we got it out there in this big field, and was going to fly that thing, and took off, and it was doing pretty good. And then I don't know, maybe I screwed up or something, but we crashed it.
Oh no.
Yes, we crashed it and it burned. No, it didn't burn.
No.
Yeah, we quenched it. Yeah. So, but that was a story. Another story was the fact that with Fred McMurray and Claudette Colbert, there was a scene in there where myself and Gigi, who was in that movie, and her brother Peter Miles, he had a cry scene where we had to come into the room and we're crying because they're kind of having a big tiff and they're going to split up, and they're on their honeymoon, and we feel that we've messed it up, and so we come in and we're crying. And so that scene, it seemed like, I don't know why it took so long to do, but I guess there was other things going on, but anyway, it seemed like we cried all day long. And there's only one, crying is easier than laughing. I found that out.
Really?
Yeah, because to really have a good laugh and to make it really be realistic, there's just a few people that can do that in Hollywood. And I can't remember some of their names, but if I see him on the screen, I can say, yeah, that guy, oh, he can laugh. But yeah, so crying is, you've just got to get yourself worked up to the point where you have something in your mind that makes you cry. Like,
thought about that model plane bursting into flames, didn't you?
Okay, no, I thought about the dog that died, but on this thing, Gigi and her brother and myself, what we would do is we'd go in off, in the other room off stage, and we made up a story about a little girl with a little pony, and the pony died, and she goes to the grave, and so we just keep adding on to that story and keep crying the whole day. So,
but what's interesting about that is that you came up with that yourself. We hear so many stories about how maybe directors or somebody comes up to the kid and they're like, hey, your mom said she's leaving and she's never coming back, or something terrible like that, to get the kids worked up. So you were self-motivated to get yourself there.
Yeah, well, I think it was more Peter's idea because of the fact that he was older than myself and Gigi, but we added on to that story, and then there was another one where I cried in a Cheaper by the Dozen, where at the one ending scene there where Dad dies and the girls come home and they come up the sidewalk and I'm sitting out there on the sidewalk with the housekeeper, I guess, and they come up and, Annie, our daddy's dead, and so what they did is they had this really neat old electric car, I don't know, 1920, whatever, and they said, well, if you cry during this scene, we'll let you ride in that car. Oh, okay, cool, I can do that. So then what I did was my dad had gone back to Kentucky to open a plant for the company he was working for. And so he had been gone for a couple months. And I told everybody, oh yeah, I thought about my little puppy dog that died. Well, it really wasn't that. I thought about my dad dying in a plane crash. And since we were the best of friends and, that he was my best buddy. Hey, my dad was my best buddy. I mean, we did everything together. And so, so that was the reason I cried on that one.
Wow. But, that's something.
Yeah.
So Invaders from Mars, this, it scared the pants off of people especially when it came to television. I hear stories about, well, even on this disc release, there's stories behind the scenes about these people that would, it horrified them. I mean, it's a nightmare of a movie. It's kind of a nightmare. The movie is a nightmare in a lot of ways. Did you at the time? It probably wasn't scary on set, right? Because you're seeing it, you're behind the scenes and they want to take care of you. And I know that, you got to work with Max Palmer and Locke Martin and looks like it was a pretty nice set, but were you aware at the time, like, oh, this is something this could be scary?
No, that wasn't, and I tell you why. I mean, I had to ask. I said, why are the trees all painted black and there's no leaves on them? And why is the door in the police station, 20 foot high instead of just a normal, 8 foot or whatever, and so, they had to explain to me that it was sort of taken from the little boy's point of view, and it's a dream. And so you got this nightmarish type thing where, in dreams, and I don't know about you, but a lot of times if you have a dream, you see something and you don't get to see the details. You just see the overall picture of it. And that's kind of what this was. I mean, you got to see the hill that ended. You got to see, the sand opening up and closing, the music. And that was one thing that I didn't realize, that was one of Steven Spielberg's his favorite movie, and he wanted to do the remake. Shucks. Nothing against Tobe Hooper. I mean, he did, but it just, I think if Steven would have touched that thing, it would have been a good line.
Well, it would have had a lot of heart to it. It would have had a lot of, he was so great at making that, especially in the 80s, of bringing that like suburban, every kid, every family kind of story to life. Like you felt, you felt like you were there. You were really good at putting yourself in the movie because of him.
Yeah. And so it was, I'm kind of lost my train of thought right now about where I was going to go with this.
Well, you're talking about how it was a nightmare, and you were asking why things were exaggerated.
Thanks. And so, I never realized that little kids would see it a little bit different, and it was scary to them because all of a sudden, their mom and dad turned to be evil people, and everybody around him, nobody would listen to him, and they were turning out to be the bad guys. And here he was, this poor little kid all by himself, trying to rally the troops, so to speak, saying, come on, there's something out there. And nobody's believing him. And I think little kids kind of saw that, and they're thinking, geez, could that happen to my mom and dad? And, and and so I never, like you said, my being part of it, it wasn't scary to me. It was just a lot of work, because we made that movie in like 3.5 weeks.
Wow.
And I mean, nowadays, I mean, you can't even get one scene done in 3.5 weeks, but I mean, but it
No,
was
and
just,
you were in almost every scene too.
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. And I never worked so hard in my life.
What kind of days were they? Were they like 12-hour days, 16-hour days?
Oh, you can't, as a kid, you only have certain hours you can work.
Okay, so they did adhere to the laws that
Oh, yeah.
child labor. Okay.
You have to do that. And you
Okay.
have to have 3 hours of schooling. And you'd get that 15-minute increments, but anyway, you get it.
Yeah.
And that was another thing too, having a teacher on the set and having school right there. Sometimes people say, well, did you get a good education? And I'm saying, yeah, I got a really good education, because as a kid, and when you're going to a regular public school, and are there any questions the teacher asks? And you don't want to raise your hand and be the dummy. Yeah, I don't understand what you're saying. No, you're just quiet. And you hope like heck that when you go home that night, maybe you can do the homework and you'll find out what it's all about. And or you just let it go. And there was a teacher, there was me. If I had a problem, I'd say, I don't understand. What's this? And she would explain it to me. So now I had a private tutor, so to speak. And I didn't realize how good that was until, like I said, I got into high school, and all of a sudden, now I don't have the private tutor anymore.
Yeah.
And
Well, so if it didn't scare you, what I am curious about is what did scare you? Do you remember what scared you at that time? Universal monsters, maybe, or
the couple of movies that scared me. One was called The Man from Planet X. I don't know why that scared me so much, but
it's got like a mask, sort of
yeah, like a breathing apparatus type thing on it, and he was in that spaceship, and they couldn't scratch it with a diamond and all that. And it was made out on the moors of England, so that one was one that scared me. Another one was called The Thing. Scared me a lot.
Yeah.
Scared me. I remember we went and saw that movie, and we were coming home with my friend and myself, and it was probably around 8:00 at night. And it was starting to get dark. And we came to a point where I lived a block over from him. So we had to separate at a point, and I would go into my block and go down. We separated, and as we were still in, each other's eyesight, everything was okay. But as soon as we couldn't see each other, I know both of us took off running. And you're running as fast as you could go, because you knew somebody was going to be right behind you and grab you.
Mm-hmm.
And I can remember that happening, when you're a kid and you had to take out the garbage. Of course, we didn't have garbage disposals in those days. So you had to take the garbage out to the garbage can. And it was out by the side of our garage. And I can remember walking out there and knowing you dumped the garbage. And as you're walking back, just as you put your hand on the back door, somebody's going to grab you. And so that was always that scary moment too. But those were some of the movies that scared me.
Yeah. Did any, as you got further from your movie career, did it become, like your high school, and people like, oh, I know you? Did that happen from time to time?
It happened to me a lot,
Yeah.
because I went into, I went into this, well, let's put it this way. I graduated from high school and went to junior college. I was going to go to the University of Colorado, but I don't know. I got frightened and decided not to go because I didn't know anybody. And so I went to junior college at Santa Monica City College, and I spent 2 years there in the engineering program, and went out for baseball and football there. Found out that I was okay in high school, but that was the next step up, and the baseball players got much better. And then I went out for the football team, and I was kind of probably maybe second, third string, defensive back, wide receiver. And all I could see was myself, kind of like the Rudy film, just getting beat up every day at practice. And, maybe seeing, a moment or two in a game. And I thought to myself, hey, this isn't worth it.
Yeah.
This is not worth it. And so myself and a friend that I had made in college, who turned out to be my brother-in-law now.
Wow.
We went down and joined the Army, and went into a program called the Army Security Agency, which we intercepted and broke code. And so I was stationed in Germany for 3 years, and had a great time there, and met my wife. And we just recently celebrated our 60th wedding anniversary.
Congratulations.
Thanks, appreciate that. She's a great woman. Left her country, her family, and came to the United States, and raised a family here for me, and she's a great lady.
That's wonderful.
And
So had she seen your movies? Did she know who you were at the time?
No, she didn't have any idea. Matter of fact, she's impressed. She thinks I did an okay job, but no. As we see some of these movies, it's the first time for her to ever see them. So yeah.
Well, you were great in these. I want to say this. You were great. I understand the being kind of critical of your performances and things like that, but you were a kid. And one of the things that you did such a great job at is being the vessel for the viewer. I mean, it was really, especially in Invaders from Mars, you are the avatar that we get to experience the situation from. And you're so believable. You're so natural with it. So I think you were great.
Well, thanks. I look at it and I think, I could have done better. I could have done it. But I guess, hey, we did it.
Yeah.
We did it, and it worked out. And the neat thing about it is the fact that in, I don't know, 2003, something like that, somewhere in that point, a gentleman back in New York convinced me to come and do an autograph show. And I had turned down hundreds of those invitations. And so I finally went, and my wife was not feeling good for some reason that time. So I took my youngest son, and we went, and we got there, and we came in, and it was, they had a deal in Manhattan, and the show was there. And so we came into the hotel room, or a hotel lobby, and there was a group of older people across the lobby from us. And all of a sudden, one of them looked up and said, there he is, that's him. And I'm looking, and all of a sudden, it was like somebody opened the door to the geriatric ward, and here they came. And it with their walkers and everything. And I'm looking at my son and going, do we run? What do we do? You know? So they came and they got, I autographed stuff for them.
Yeah.
We're going up the elevator, go to our room. My son says, see, Dad, I told you, you know, they haven't forgotten you.
No, they have. Have you done a lot of those since then? A lot of the autograph sessions?
I've done probably maybe 10, 15 of them, maybe a few.
Do you like, how do you feel about it?
It's fun to do. It's fun to talk about it. I mean, you know.
Yeah. I would think that right now, with this being the 70th anniversary, this would be a great time to do like a convention, or, you know, do a panel where you talk to people and they can sit in front of the audience.
I've done, you know, a few things now. One I did with, I don't know if you know him or not, his name is Rob Ward, and he has a word on Westerns.
Mm-hmm.
We did a deal about Joel McRae on that one. We've done, of course, with this promotion for the film or the restoration, we've done quite a few of these Zooms and things like that. So, yeah, it's getting, and it's fun to do. It's fun to do. I mean, and most of the time, people are very good, like you are, Heath, and you keep me, you know, you guide me down the road, because, hey, I tell you, I'm getting older, and you start to forget where you want to go with certain things.
Well, it's a pleasure for me. I'm winding down. This is really my last question. I'm curious, you know, on the 70th anniversary of this movie, it's been 70 years. It's still scary. It's still really powerful. Why do you think this movie is as relevant today as it was? Maybe more relevant than it was when it was first made?
Because all of a sudden now, there are people who are saying, yes, hey, I've seen a UFO. Okay, and now all of a sudden, all of this stuff is starting to come out about the pilots seeing certain things, and we're now, you know, and Chinese balloons flying over the United States, and
Yeah,
a lot of stuff like that. And yeah, you know, it could be, and to this day, I saw a UFO when I was like 14 years old, walking down the street, going to my friend's house, walked by a gentleman that he rented out he had a fleet of big Cadillac studio cars, and he'd, you know, and so he was out there polishing one of his cars, and I came walking by and said hello to him, and all of a sudden we both looked up and we saw this cigar-shaped unit out in the sky, and it was moving along pretty good, and all of a sudden it just did a 90-degree turn, just zip straight up, and then it went away. And we both looked at each other and said, did you see that? That was not an airplane. You know, they can't do those things. And so that was my one little visual that I saw. And yeah, you know, now all of a sudden it's becoming to the point where people now believe that maybe there is something out there besides just us. And it's, when you think about it, you look at the whole universe and you go, hey, you know, we may be just this little portion way over here. Way over here, maybe someone else has tried something else over here. And, you know, and I have a deep religious background, you know, I don't mention it very often, but the fact that, you know, I joined the Mormon church, or you know, when I was, I don't know, younger, in like my first, well, I guess 8 years after I was married, my wife and I joined, and my children are raised in the church. And, I believe that, we have a Father in heaven, and we do, and why would we be just so special, that we're the only ones? There could be other people too. So, yeah, so it's relevant, and the invaders from Mars, and they may not be coming from Mars, but who knows where they're coming from.
Sir, this has been an incredible honor for me. Thank you so much for your time and your wonderful answers. I appreciate it.
Well, good. I mean, listen, I appreciate you, wanting to hear this. It's good. Thank you.
Jimmy Hunt saw a UFO. I was expecting an answer. My question was essentially like, why is this movie still relevant 70 years later? And it does come up like, well, there was a Chinese spy balloon floating over the United States. That's kind of what I was expecting. But he's like, no, he saw a UFO. That's why it's relevant, because he thinks there's something out there. Fascinating to me. Last thing I expected out of this conversation. So I had a blast with this one. You guys know what a huge fan of Hollywood and Hollywood history I am. Specifically Hollywood history, like the roots of Hollywood, the thing that built what we love now. The 30s, the 40s, the 50s, classic Hollywood. And it doesn't get more classic than Invaders from Mars. I want to shout this out one more time. It's a gorgeous restoration. I have done a full review for the new 4K edition, which has some great special features. So I'll link to that, and I'll link to where you can purchase Invaders from Mars in the description of this episode. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe. We're having conversations like this one each and every week. Every 7 days, there's a new episode of the Serial at Midnight podcast with really interesting guests. So I don't want you to miss anything. I want you to share this with whoever you can. Help get the word out about the Serial at Midnight podcast. And I will see you again in 7 days. Guys, thanks so much. Take care. Until next time, I will catch you